Hello, and welcome to my first tutorial on how to script for Tribot. Last time I explained on how to set up Tribot with Eclipse. We've created this test file, which we do not need anymore, so you can go ahead and delete this file. Now, go to Source, New, Package, and create a new package called Scripts. You have to name it Scripts with a lowercase s, because it is necessary, else it won't read the scripts correctly. Go to New Class, and we're going to name it Miner. This name you can choose, it doesn't matter, but when we're going to make it Miner, I think it's logical you name it something like that. Go ahead and make it. Now, in order to start scripting, we need to extend the actual script file within the jar file of Tribot. I'm not going to explain in depth how this all works, but I'm going to try and explain the basics so you understand how you can actually write a script and understand its logic. I can go ahead and make you copy one of my scripts, but that way you won't learn anything new. So, it has created this particular method, which is called run. What it does is when we'll start the script, it will just perform everything that's inside of here once. That's not the point of a script. We want it to do repetitive tasks and keep doing it until we say stop. Not just once, because that's useless. So, first of all, we're going to make a script manifest, which contains the name of the script and the actual author who made it, and the category of that script. So, my name on the forums is Nexus. The category is going to be mining, and the script name is a tin miner. You could also add a description, but I'm going to explain that in future tutorials. Now, before we actually start the script, we need to make a small extension to the API, you could say, but we're just going to extend it within the script because the API isn't open source. So we'll go ahead and make a private boolean called onStart. In this boolean, we're going to put everything the script has to do before it actually starts. This is very useful if you have a GUI for your script. For example, if you have a fishing script that needs to support multiple locations, or a mining script that needs to support multiple rocks, and you want the user to actually choose which rock to mine. This is very useful, but I'm definitely not going to explain this in your first tutorial. Here we can go but print line, and we're going to make it say tin miner has started. Make this a capital, looks prettier. Now, what we also need is another method, which is actually an integer called loop. This is going to be our continuous loop. Most of the programming is going to happen in here, which we're going to return a value, for example 42. It's a time when the whole loop is completed. It will sleep for an amount of time, so it will do nothing for this amount of time you put in here. A lot of people I see put in a 1. It will work perfectly, but this is extremely extensive on your CPU and will make your script lag. So I'm just going to put 42. If this makes your computer lag too much, you can increase the number to 100 or 150. It doesn't really matter. It's the amount of milliseconds, it will return nothing. Now, in here we're going to do if onStart is true, which means if everything that's performed before the actual script starts is done and it has returned true, then we can continue. Then we're going to make a loop which will continuously do this, and it's going to sleep in that loop. I know, if this is your first scripting lesson, you might not understand a lot of it, but it's just some logic you'll have to keep repeating and eventually you'll understand it. This is a while loop. This will just keep repeating every time until you press the stop script button. Sleep method is a method within the Tribot file in the API which just sleeps for an amount of time, which is in this case 42, but first we have to make the script do something. Now if we would start it, it would just keep sleeping 42 milliseconds and do nothing. So we have to start off with gathering some data, for example the pickaxe and the other items in my inventory which are useless, which I should have banked, but I didn't because I'm too lazy. And the actual objects we're going to mine. Go to debug objects, interactive objects. Now you can see each object has a different ID. This is the client's way of perceiving every data that there's to see and actually interacting with it. We can see this as a rock. We recognize it because of its color and its position because we're used to playing RuneScape and we know what it is. But the client has no idea what it is, so it has to see it as a number or another value. In this case, it's 2095. So we'll go ahead and make a private final int called rock ID, which equals 2095. Now, the private means it is only accessible within this class. The final means it is never going to change a value, which means the script is not going to search whether rock ID will change its value or not. Int means rock ID is simply a placeholder for 2095. Which means, for example, if you have this huge script and you need to call rock ID, for example an iron ore or something, you have to call it 1,000 times. You cannot memorize each number you have to put in, so you can just put a string of text there, which is easier to remember. 295 for example, which is a tin ore. Some other data we need are the pickaxes, because we do not want it to drop our pickaxes. Now, we're creating an array, which means we're going to put in multiple items we don't want it to drop. I'm going to name it pickaxes, but that's not entirely correct because I'm going to add my coins in there. Go to debug inventory, and now you can see the inventory IDs. This is my admin pickaxe because I'm only 36 mining. Input the actual ID, the room pickaxe, which is 1275, and my coins, because I do not want it to drop my coins. Another thing you have to know is when you're scripting, I use hotkeys. For example, if I want to save it, you could click this button here, which is the save button, but I use a hotkeys, Ctrl S. And let's say your script is a little bit messed up and is out of order, you can do Ctrl Shift F, which formats it and makes it look pretty again. I use these functions a lot because it helps improve the time and makes you faster scripts, yes, overall. When we have these two, we can actually start writing some code. The first code is going to be basic. So if your inventory is full, now you see you have two options Eclipse gives you: API inventory and API 2000 inventory. This is pretty straightforward. You have to choose 2007 because Tribot also works for the EOC. Now what we want to do is we want to drop all items except the ones we give, which are the pickaxes, which are 1271, 1275 and 995, which is my adamant pickaxe, my room pickaxe and the coins. You can add any other value in there. Now, if my inventory is full, it is going to drop everything except those three items. Else, so which means if my inventory isn't full, what will we do? First of all, we'll check if my player, so player.getRSPlayer.get animation, which is the current animation the player is performing. For example, when you are mining, your animation is different from when you are fishing or when you are running, and when you're just standing. When you are standing, your animation is -1, which means you're basically doing nothing, you're just standing there. So now my animation is -1. You can debug the animation and you can see it up there. It is -1. When I actually mine a rock, oh, it's burnt. Well, we're not going to put in that small random event yet. This is going to be for future tutorials. When you actually click it, you can see my animation is 628, which is different than when I'm just standing. So we're going to say when my animation equals -1, so actually when I'm doing nothing, what are we going to do? We're going to click the rock. So rs objects rock equals objects dot find nearest. Now the issue is you can put in a distance and an actual rock ID which we made earlier, but it returns an array of rocks, so it would return this one and that one. We're going to make a small method which makes us return 1 instead of an array, because when calling an array it is difficult and less pretty, you could say. So we're going to write our own custom method which just returns one item of this array. So if you do not understand this, you really do not need to understand this right now, because when you're new to Java you won't understand anything of it. I can basically promise you, unless you're pretty smart. This takes not much knowledge, so if you repeat it a few times you will understand it. But go ahead and just copy this with me. I won't explain that much info about this one, but I'll go ahead and try my best. So you can copy this line here, paste it in there, and add these two brackets. Now what it does, it finds the nearest objects 15 paces from us with the ID of 29.5, which is that one and maybe some behind there, I've no idea. So, and it puts it in an array like we did earlier with the pickaxes, so it creates such a thing with those objects. We're going to name this objects, and we'll copy the distance and every ID in there. So you have to actually give it again. So for each rs object within this loop, so each element of objects we're going to give the name object, the actual instance, you could say. So if the object doesn't equal null, you can just return it. Return the object means give it to find nearest, which we'll use here. The distance we're going to put 15 approximately. That's a bit much, but why not? And it's rock idea. See, now it actually returns one object and the one that's nearest to us. In this case, that one. I'm going to stand there. So now we can actually make it interact with that object. So if the object doesn't equal null, now you say, why do I have to write doesn't equal null? This is a small check, a failsafe you could say, to actually make sure the object is there. If you do not do this and you try to interact with this object, it is going to throw an error, which is called a null pointer exception. If you ever see that error, you forgot a null check. I'm 100% sure of it. Now we can go ahead and check other things. For example, is the rock actually on the screen? So is it between this and there and there and there? If it actually is visible for us, for the actual player, the bot for that example, go to rock.click, and now we need to click the actual option, which is mine. Alright. What we're now going to do is we're going to make the script rest for an amount of time, because if we would now start the script, it would do this and it would just start mass clicking it all over the place extremely fast, which is not something you want, because that's very bot-like and it will slow down your performance and experience per hour. What we're going to do is we're going to need a timer class. I think it's somewhere. Oh, I seem to have closed it, so I'm going to copy it from my old one. I'm going to put a paste bin link down in the description, so you can just copy that class. Don't worry. This is a class copied from the source from Powerbot, which is extremely useful. On top of here you can timer, time equals new timer, and you will put about 3 seconds, which is the time it's going to rest until another condition is true or false. I know this might seem confusing, but this is called dynamic sleeping, which is really necessary if you want to have a good performance of your script. So while the player's animation equals -1, so while it's doing nothing, and the time is running, so it is actually doing something. You can just sleep for 10 milliseconds. So if either one of these conditions return false, so if the 3 seconds are passed, or if the player animation is already mining, it will stop this and restart the loop. This is very useful, for example, if you were standing there and you would just put sleep 100 and you click it, then it would now click it again, again, and again. If you were standing here and you would use this method, it would just click it and wait 3 seconds, but it only took you about 1 second to get there, so it doesn't do anything. If it would take you 1 second to mine, it would just mine, the timer is already stopped, and now it just continue mining. It's dynamically, it changes to the environment, you could say. Now we're going to make a small paint. Go up here and type implements. Painting. Sorry, had to peek, forgot it. Now I can't type. Good. You could just import it from Tribot. And now it asks to implement the method that interface asks, which is onPaint, which are the graphics you can see in other scripts. For example, this little text of animation. That's a paint, you could say. We're going to make a small one just to be sure the script is actually started. I like the color green, so G, which stands for graphics, which you need. Set color dot green, and G dot draw string, which will just draw a string of text to the screen. Script running, you could say Tinminer, for example. And the positions 380 and 330. These are the X and Y coordinates of the screen, which you can debug. Go to mouse positions. Now you can see the actual location here. It's about here, you could say. In this area, the text will appear. I'm going to put it off again. There you go. We do not need that, nor do we need that. And we're going to put that off as well. Now, the script is pretty much finished. Let's go ahead and test it. Go to your Explorer, C drive, uses, your name, and the workspace which is created, which is basically just called workspace. I name mine workspace 2 because there's too much stuff in my actual workspace. Go to the project, yes, I forgot the name of that. Go to the project you made. Go to bin, which contains the compiled scripts. And you'll see your 2 files in here. You can just go ahead and copy these. Go to view local scripts folder. It's going to be empty for you, and you can just paste those 2 in there. Now we're going to test our script. Just go to start script, which makes take some time to load, because it has to connect to the forums, which are pretty laggy at the moment. As you can see, when making the manifest, we put it in the category mining, which is now in a folder called mining, and the script name is actually Tinminer, which stands there. Now you can just go ahead and start the script. As you can see, it moved the mouse to the correct position. I messed it up there, sorry. Now it's going to do 3 seconds of nothing, and then continue, because we put the actual timer to 3 seconds, which is dynamically, and when it fails, it will just do 3 seconds of nothing, and then continue. As you can see, as soon as the rock has been mined, and the player is doing nothing, it starts to move the mouse instantly, and go to mine the other rock. So, let's go ahead and read the code again. This is the actual time we've put in for the dynamic sleeping. This is just a placeholder for the ID of the rock, and these are the placeholders for the actual items in your inventory which is not allowed to drop. This method is just everything that's going to have to perform when the script before the script actually starts, and it has to return true, else the script won't start. This is the actual run method from the API, which we check if this one is true. Oh, it has a random event. I do not know if Tribot solves these 100%, but I guess it does. Alright, there you go. Now it should just continue the script. There you go. Now, let's continue this while loop, which makes it loop constantly over this whole piece of code until we press stop script, which I'm not going to do now. I want you to see it will drop everything in the inventory except those 3 items. This is a small method we made because we need to return one object instead of multiple objects around the player. This is the loop which I explained where most of the coding happens, and this is the paint which draws that small line of text right here. Now the inventory is almost full. I don't really know what to talk about anymore. Oh yeah, if you guys have any questions about the script, you should just ask me. As you can see, it started dropping all the iron ores. The tin ores, I'm sorry. It goes a bit slow, but if you want, you can go to the onStart method and go mouse dot set speed, say about 150, which is pretty fast. I'm going to stop the script. Oh no, I'm just going to leave it. You'll see if it will start mining whenever the inventory is full. Like you see, it also drops the chocolate bar because this is not included in our pickaxes array. It will just drop all these ores except our pickaxes and our money. I'll repeat, if you have any questions or small methods or things you do not understand, you can just ask me in the description or send me a message on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.